Encoding overloaded. I wonder what that means. Turn down settings. How dare they? Not turn down settings for anyone. Maybe I will. I don't know. Let's see if we can't get the YouTube visible. I think I need to change that around. Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can't. Oh, I can't pull that out anymore. How weird. Well, that's annoying. Oh, maybe I can. Done. Isn't there a... There it is. Stand by as I pull out the YouTube so we can actually see it there. Transition that over. There we are. Hey, Jay. Good to see you virtually. We'll kind of get things set up here. I think we're getting fairly close to a reasonable setup here. So yeah, it is Friday night, which means it's time to talk about Japanimation. Right? Anime, whatever you want to call it. It feels really good to be on this kick of watching older stuff from the 70s. There's just something about that era that's just so much more fresh, so much more, I don't know, vibrant is a reasonable word for it. It's certainly more innocent, it's more formulaic and simple, but there's a charm to that. You know, the audience is clearly like preteen children. Hey, girl. And so you have that just directness of the approach to the storytelling, and that's not what I want in everything, but it can be very nice sometimes to have something that's just very easy. But I think the '90s kind of style of unique anime will make a repeat in modern times. Probably not in the sense of being like a the thing that everything's doing that everyone's doing, but I think that'll always be around. The weirdo everything happening at once, all genres simultaneously thing that we saw so much in the '90s. I think you'll see shows like that occasionally. I think Trigger's shows tend to be very '90s inspired. So I think that kind of stuff you tend to get. What I've seen of Darling the Franxx is a very '90s style show in terms of setting and concept. So I think that happens. But yeah, so I've been watching Ultraman and Anne of Green Gables and Captain Future. Captain Future. Which is exactly what it sounds like. Classic sort of space opera. An anime boom. I don't know. I think it's possible. I think we're kind of in a boom. We have a lot of anime out there. They're certainly producing a huge amount of it. So I think if anything, we might be more heading towards a bust sooner or later, just with all of the shows being produced. Getting dozens every season. So we'll see. Although this coming up season seems a little relatively thin on shows, as was in the previous season, in terms of just quantity. So maybe we're already starting to see that slight showdown or slowdown rather in shows. Not sure because you just can't handle that kind of. The industry probably just can't grow that fast that quickly. Will we see a boom? I don't know. I mean, one of the big reasons for the boom. Hey, Echo. One of the big reasons for the boom was just all that money coming in from Akira. So I wonder if we'll see a boom in anime movies after Your Name. The success of Your Name. If we'll see that produce more films. It always takes a little while for the success of a film to see investment kind of rolling in and to see that boom take place. Maybe in a year or two, we'll start seeing more of those movies start to come out, more of those sort of family anime films. Hey, Solid Company. Hard to tell, but I think that's That's a trend I would anticipate seeing, right? Certainly, when your film is as successful as Your Name, you're going to start seeing people putting money into more things like that. And I'm certainly not complaining about that. And I think also, Silent Voice seems to have done well critically. I don't know how well. Sorry, Sirens. I don't know how well Silent Voice did in terms of box office. I think it did okay, but it certainly seems to have been a critical darling. So I think that will definitely bolster anime films, which is good. The anime film industry has been rather moribund of late. It seems, certainly compared to prior times when there was a lot of interesting sort of original anime films being made, or even if not, original films, still interesting takes on things like Casa Cagliostro and My Youth in Arcadia and the Galaxy Express 39's movie, stuff like that, where even if they were sort of based on existing franchises, they were more or less self-contained, and you could really understand what was going on with that movie instead of being just essentially a 90-minute episode or 90-minute sequel or what have you, as stuff like some of the recent stuff has been. It would be kind of hard to watch the Haruhi movie Disappearance without having seen the original show and really parse it very easily. So hopefully we'll see more of those kind of original films. Not that not that they've gone away. Obviously we've gotten stuff like Your Name and Hosoda's films and so forth. But maybe it'll be a bit more of a renaissance of those, which would be cool. I'd love to see that really flourish. Seeing Cone and people like that, seeing a flourishing of those sorts of things. Will anime could be remade successfully? Interesting, because in the Discord we were talking about Star Blazers and how Space Battleship Yamato was remade quite successfully, which is kind of a surprise given how that was very much an anime of its era in a lot of ways. Anime could be remade successfully. It's odd because I love Tenchi Muyo to death, and there's certainly been modern, Tenchi series, but none has seemed to really capture the magic very well, which is odd because it's a harem anime with isekai overtones, or even undertones. But yeah, it hasn't really caught on. What could be remade successfully? I think you could do something interesting. We kind of already had this in a way. You could do a really cool modern Lupin series. I think the recent Lupin series, not Fujiko Mine, but the most recent one where he's like, he breaks into the underwater bank and there's the whole thing against people trying to find Lupin. That was an interesting modern take on the thing. I think that general idea of just a gentleman thief, I think is something that would definitely work well in modern times. You certainly cast that in interesting lights. Kashun Sins, yeah. And it's always something we'd never expect. It's always like Ultraman or something. We're like, oh, that's the big thing. Who knew? So I don't know. Let's see here, I'm trying to think of stuff from the 80s, for example. I'd love to see somebody do something like, and this is a show very few folks know about, but Fang of the Sun Dogram, which was an anime series made a little bit after Gundam. It was the second real robot anime, so it meant to be very, very grounded and gritty, more Vietnam-esque in its concept, and so I think somebody doing a really, just grounded mecha series in that way would be something you could really do in a cool way. Yeah, Lupin's weird because I think Lupin is such a well-established character in Japan that every time they make a Lupin movie or OVA or whatever, it always still feels like, oh, well, you know who this guy is. So you have the Lupin the Third Part 4 and Part 5, like you said, it's the remake, which is awesome. But there's always that kind of, I don't know, background history to the character that always seems to be there. Gosh. Sorry, there's a lot of sirens and roaring engines outside tonight. It's like a, I don't know, biker rally or something going on. It could be remade successfully. I honestly think Akira could be remade successfully, as long as folks kind of get off their high horses and realize it's not going to be like the 1988 Akira film. I think, even in animation, you could definitely remake Akira and do that in a way that is visually striking, and is interesting. It doesn't have to be as expensive in terms of animation, but I think you could definitely tell a new Akira story very well. Yeah, probably Akko. That's. Um, how does that Akira music go? Definitely feels like that. Apparently. Well, if a grenade comes tumbling through my windows in slow motion, then Akira is going on. Yeah, I mean, granted, but we have the Evangelion rebuilds, right, and that's shattering people. So, um, people are handling the Evangelion thing. Speaking of, I came across an interesting Twitter thread about the new dub of Evangelion on Netflix. Somebody said, and this is some random person on Twitter, so who knows? They said they were at the premiere of the rebuild of Evangelion 3.0 dub in America, the Funimation dub, at Anime Expo a couple years ago. And apparently the Funimation dub leaned really heavily on the Shinji versus Kaoru sort of are they aren't they sort of BL aesthetic of it. And clearly Funimation the staff there really understood that A, fans know that that's a thing, and B, that has been an implied subtext. And apparently the audience just really went nuts for that. They were laughing and just really into it very strongly. But apparently, a representative of Studio Khara was in the audience for this and was mortified. Because as far as they're concerned, this is a serious movie and people were laughing at EVA 3.0. And so they thought that people just, weren't getting it. So apparently ever thereafter, and as a result, they went and they redubbed the entire film. Funimation did. And so Studio Khara has been very, heavily involved in these translations. And unfortunately, they've been no, you have to do a completely literal translation of the lines. And, you have to dub it the way Japanese people dub things, which is everything subtext. Nothing is said explicitly, not just in terms of words, but in terms of tonality. Right? You don't get overly emotional about things. You let the subtleties and implications of the dialogue communicate for you instead of the overtones of the acting. And that really doesn't work in English. That's not the way English works. And so apparently that's the Netflix dub of Evangelion is a lot more flat and a lot more just kind of literal translation of the words as opposed to the meanings of the words, which is why it's kind of not really working out very well for people, which is a shame. So yeah, not one of those unfortunate things. And again, I don't know if any of that, I can't verify any of that. It's just what some person claimed. I could see an Urusei Yatsura remake, definitely. Goofy harem comedy, basically. Although the guy's really focusing on one girl. But we certainly had plenty of those harem series. Yeah, I can see Urusei Yatsura. I can see Maison Ikkoku. It'd be funny to see a Ranma 1/2 resurgence. I think it's certainly something that you could you could reboot, because the concept is not particularly complicated to explain to people. You can do that in an episode or two. And it's a goofy action comedy. It's basically Naruto with breasts, kind of, right? Just Naruto with more fan service. So I think that would definitely work for people. Kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet, to be honest. Yeah, totally. And that's the other nice thing, is that you could pitch it and do it as just a new Ranma 1/2 series. Right, same continuity, because those characters are eternally teenagers. So you just do more Ranma one half, right? So what? Maybe do a flashback episode or flashback for the first like 5 minutes of the first episode just to catch everyone up who's never heard of this before, and then the rest of it is just more Ranma, right? That would certainly work, and certainly the other nice thing is that the animation industry has evolved to the point where those you can bring in the staff to make those martial arts sequences really sing, because Ranma one half was always they always paid attention to those martial arts stuff, but these days we've had umpteen thousand episodes of Naruto plus the other sort of ninja sort of esque stuff, and so I think you definitely have just a lot more people able to come in and just do some really cool martial arts sequences with Ranma. I think you could totally do that. You could do Macross remake. Yeah, Tom and Jerry just kind of continues forever. It's weird because I think for the Japanese audience you can certainly do that, but I mean the American audience is so perpetually young, you kind of have to reintroduce things to people. But I think for the Japanese folks, you could certainly just do more of any given thing, and folks would just like get it. Oh yeah, it's Doraemon. I know what that is. It's Sazai-san. I know what that is. Of course, there's always more of that stuff. But going back and doing, Irresponsible Captain Tylor, for example, or El Hazard. I have a really strong love for El Hazard because I just fell hard for that first OVA, and it's I think the first isekai anime. Certainly the first major isekai anime that I know of, and there's it's just very sweet, and the romantic element of it. And actually, I take that back. The central romance ends up being surprisingly sweet by the very end. So I was just really, that appealed to me a lot, but I don't know. I think the Arabian theme is harder to do well now because it's not as exotic as it used to be, and it has it has certain connotations these days, and especially we're so much more politically correct. So I think there'd be much more worry that you're getting it wrong, even though it's Arabesque. It's not actually Arabian, just using those kinds of ideas. I don't know. It is odd. But yeah, it's been really fun going back and watching some of those older anime series and just appreciating that. By the way, apologies for skipping last week's live anime stream. I literally just got home, feeling tired, lay down on the couch for a little bit, and just conked out for hours. Literally just slept right through. Woke up at like 10:30 at night. Not intentional, but it just kind of happened, which is just kind of the reality of things. Also, next week's going to be interesting. I plan to do the Friday stream, but we're going to have some guests around, I suspect. Some of them will be returning faces. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's weird. I very rarely fall asleep in the evenings. I'm not 80 years old or anything, but it's weird. Yeah, so it's a little worrying. It's like I don't want to be that guy who suddenly like has to take a nap every evening. But yeah, work's been kind of exhausting, like not stressful, but just we just came to an end of a 4.5 month boot camp, so which I helped lead. So it's kind of like a lot of stuff over, students graduating, and me starting to spin up and prepare for the next one. So I think that's just a lot of mental energy going into that. Didn't go poorly, just one of those, a lot on one's mind. And then also I've just been sort of working on projects, getting things finished up and nailed down for the future. So we'll see. But yeah, that was kind of weird. But yeah, and then I've got some more videos planned for the channel. 80s anime might be the one I have to redraw. Yeah. I'm a little confused about your question, Jay. What are you asking in terms of suggestions? Like 80s anime to watch, or 80s anime to remake? People can watch this in VR. Really? How? Well, I guess yeah, because you can do. Can you do like any video in VR? Just pop on the helmet because this is not a 360-degree video. But yeah, that'd be kind of weird. One of these days, I want to try like watching a movie in VR, just see what it's like. Like not a VR movie, but just like a regular, you know, Hollywood movie, just with VR goggles on and see what it's like. Because apparently, it's kind of overwhelming. It's pretty cool. I actually played a few VR games recently. Yeah, 3D live stream would be cool. I wonder if I have the new camera. I wonder if I can do that. I know the old camera I have does have like a live streaming option, but I don't think it live streams to YouTube. Live streams to like their own weird platform. Um, but it would be weird to have a 3D live stream. You could see everything in the room. I mean, there's nothing here to hide. It's not like I got naked women on the other side of this. Well, one naked woman, but very weird. Gotcha. So 80s anime to watch. Well, I mean, you're certainly familiar with 80s anime. So the do you have any restrictions on length? Like, can it be a 50 episode mecha series, or should it just be a movie or an OVA? Right, all my waifus are on the other side, um, waiting patiently for me to end the stream. I actually have a few waifus up there, some of the 3D printed anime characters. Okay, so for 80s anime, off the top of my head, I'm just gonna go through a bunch of stuff. Obviously, you've probably seen some of these already. Akira, Bubblegum Crisis, original Macross, the Macross movie, Nausicaa: The Valley of Wind, My Neighbor Totoro. Thinking of the song Dogram is really interesting, but it is this 50 episode mega series set in with a guerrilla war. Zeta Gundam, one of the most controversial endings in anime ever, and a major influence on Evangelion. And you don't need to have seen the original Gundam, although it's not a bad idea. Other major 80s anime, and I'm trying not to like Google it. I'm trying to rely on my memory for a moment. Let's see. Other major 80s things. I mean, there's Maison Ikoku. That was 80s. Um, okay. I gotta look now. um, we'll do Wikipedia. That's gonna be too big. We will try Anime Planet. I mean, some of these are 70s stuff that sort of carried over into the 80s. AS in the Discord was talking about the Toward the Terra OVA, which is not a really great adaptation of that, but really really interesting in various ways. Let's see. Actually, not seeing a lot of things listed here. Anime Planet is kind of thin on 19. Oh, this is 1980 anime. Literally anime, just the anime that aired in 1980. That would explain it. Oh, Space Runaway Ideon, another major inspiration on Gundam. Ideon would be a good one. Um, let's see. Skimming through. I don't know, Voltron? Would other folks recommend Voltron? Voltron did not really hold up for me when I went back to rewatch it. That was my favorite show growing up. It's sort of what got me into anime. But going back and trying to watch it now, it's like, eh. Well, there's Barefoot Gen, a fun time. Those not familiar, it's about a kid living in the town of Hiroshima, city of Hiroshima in 1945. Guess what happens? So there's that. Hmm. Hmm. Angel's Egg came out in the 80s. That was really cool. Um, well, I'm talking about just anime from the 80s for Jay to watch, not just stuff to reboot. Um, there's a lot of stuff from the 80s I haven't seen, actually. Vampire Hunter D. There's a classic. In terms of remakes from the 80s, I would have to say I would like to see a remake of. It's going to be a weird one. I have two options here. One would be Dalos, the first OVA, technically. It's set on a moon colony, kind of slow in lots of ways. Not the greatest thing ever, but it is kind of this intriguing story that I think could be one of those things where I think just the production process kind of hampered the structure of the story. And so I think if you came back and kind of rethought how to tell that story, it would be really interesting and fun. Sort of a workers' revolution on a moon colony and about the people trying to suppress it. And then there's this ancient alien artifact that gets involved. So I think it's one of those things where, in the right hands, it could be really interesting. But I don't know. The other one would be Aura Battler Dunbeen, which there has actually been a remake of that. Kind of. Well, there's been other series set in that universe, but I don't know that there's ever been an actual remake. And I think Dunbeen would be cool because it's insectoid mecha in a fantasy world, and I think in a post Lord of the Rings we could really do with a really fun fantasy mecha series. So I'd like to see that. And the art style of Dunbeen is very 80s, so it looks dated, sadly. And so I think if somebody reworked that in a more modern style. Yeah, the weird thing about Zeta Gundam is that you have the movies, which are definitely remakes. That changes the story of Zeta Gundam. So they're kind of not it's not really the TV series. If you watch the TV series, like, oh, this ended differently. Um, Certainly, the various characters have very different. Some of them have the same ending, and others have very different endings. So it's kind of odd. Yeah, I would definitely say Zeta is worth watching. I will also say that Zeta is one of those anime series where when you're watching it, you're like, okay, eh. I appreciate this, but it's not really blowing me away. And then after you're done with it, the more you think about it, it really ages like a fine wine, where you just really feel you start to see how all it interweaves together in interesting ways. It also makes Double Zeta Gundam a little more interesting because you see where some of those characters came from and why it was interesting that they're referenced and such. There's an anime series from the 80s called Serendipity: The Pink Dragon. Wow. Yes, it is. It's exactly what that sounds like. Cute pink dragon. Um, what else we have from like the late '80s? So much I have not seen. Some I have, unfortunately. MD Geist. Ugh. Could you do a modern Project A-ko? Project A-ko is such an '80s thing. I don't know that you could modernize that effectively. '70s is tough. Now the original, we were talking about this on the Discord. The original Space Battleship Yamato, one of the great classics of anime, is only 26 episodes. So that's pretty doable. But yeah, I'm on like episode 43 of Galaxy Express 39s, and it goes to like episode. It's something crazy. Yeah, the original TV series has 113 episodes of original Galaxy Express 39s. So that's a commitment. Definitely a commitment. You can watch Brindaria, which I watched recently, and thanks to AS on the Discord, by the way, for talking through Windaria for me and really helping me to make my thoughts on that a little more nuanced. So, what did he choose for the '70s? Hmm. Yeah, there's not a lot of other '80s. Grave of the Fireflies is a classic. Don't remake that. It's not gonna happen. Not gonna work. Dominion Tank Police, another example of something that's just so late '80s. I don't think you could really remake it anyway. Hmm. Dragon Ball Z. Never heard of it. Hey, Game Escape. Gotcha Man. Okay, yeah, that is a classic. Um, a classic, if sort of repetitive. So we are talking about a couple different things. One is '80s anime worth recommending, um, and then another is older anime that would remake well. That you could do a remake and do interesting stuff with. So I'm kind of looking through and thinking about some of those possibilities. We agree that Rama and Half would be good to either remake or just do a new season of. Pretend it's just we just went on a multi-decade hiatus and we're just making more Rama right now. That'd be kind of fun. Let's see here. There was a remake of Sally the Witch. I did not know that. That's kind of surprising. Yeah, looks almost exactly like the old version. Well, not almost exactly, but not dramatically re redesigned for the late '80s version. Oh, 0080 War in the Pocket was 1989. There's an OVA for you. Also, a thing that I don't think you'd want to remake, just because it's like let's not mess with that. Um, huh. Also, a Tale of Genji remake during the time. I'm curious to see how that worked out. Tale of Genji is one of those things that just gets remade every so often or adapted every so often. It's just okay. Let's just see what they do this time. It's unfortunately it's a novel that you just can't really adapt visually very well because it's also internal. I haven't read it, but just I've read a fair number of reviews of it, and it's like this is not something you just it's all about how people feel and think, and it just doesn't make for a really compelling viewing, sadly. But such is life. So yeah, so I'm working on a few more videos coming up. I've got probably some Windaria videos. I'm gonna do some videos about Mamoru Hosoda now that I've seen all of his films. I want to talk a little bit about how Hosoda fits into the current landscape. Pilot candidate. Yeah, that'd work. You could totally do that. Classic sort of science sci-fi thing. Ah, Orange Road. Gotcha. Yeah, I could not get into Orange Road, sadly. Could not take those characters. Could not take the protagonist, really. That's just me. Pilot candidate could definitely work. Zoids? Could you reboot Zoids effectively? I don't know. How about Outlaw Star? Outlaw Star is pretty classic in that it is. It. I don't know. I was gonna say it doesn't really feel very much as of its time. I don't know. It's weird. Oh hey Saf, good to see you. Yeah, YouTube notifications are often just funky. You never know. You never know. It's YouTube. But Outlaw Star just feels like if you remade it, it would just be a completely different thing. It wouldn't be like Outlaw Star. Outlaw Star was that show that was made in whatever 1998. So you just end up with I don't know, Anime Firefly, instead. Commentary of the Iron Fortress. Cool, cool, cool. Are they remaking Code Geass or doing a sequel or something? I forget. But there was an announcement about Code Geass lately. AD Police. I like that idea. I think you could generally reboot Bubblegum Crisis, universe stuff. That whole thing is fairly easy to rework. Well, it's been remade. They did the reboot in the 2000s. But yeah, I think AD Police specifically being about these very specifically sort of police grunts during in a future with these crazy androids going nuts. I think that would work really well. The Geass movies are sort of reboots. Gotcha. Interesting. Hyper Police, fair. Yeah. It's weird. You get a lot of these concepts from back in the day that were a lot of fun, but were also very much capitalizing on trends, like all-purpose cultural cat girl Nuku Nuku, which is the whole cat girl thing. That's really kind of faded away now. I don't think you could really. I don't know that it would be that big of a deal right now just because it has a cat girl in it. That's a really fun OVA and TV series, but it was very much capitalizing on our current trend. So I don't know. Yeah, I think Korra could get a remake. I think that would work. It would be interesting to see a Korra remake because I'd want to see some tweaks to the character personalities. Just make the protagonist a little more sympathetic. So just kind of reworking some of those themes, I think would help a lot. And it's one of those classic things where sometimes a show takes a particular tack with its plot or its characters that a later reboot can look at and say, we're going to go a different direction with this, and neither is more or less valid. Just different takes to take on it. Yeah. Yeah, let's remake Speed Racer. That worked very well last time. I don't know. Original Speed Racer, that's another one of those things where it was just such a product of its time. It was so weird. So weird. Like Voltron. They remade Voltron quite successfully, apparently, but I didn't really like the reboot of Voltron because it just didn't have the right pieces for me. It could happen. Maybe. I don't know. I'd kind of like to see remakes of some American shows. Let's do a Dexter's Lab reboot, or or a Samurai Jack reboot. I think that'd be fun. Yeah, yeah, it's weird. Um, and of course, there's so many American cartoons that just got a season or two and then disappeared, um, or even a few seasons and then just kind of died on the vine. It'd be kind of fun. I'm sure there are mecha series from the '80s, all sorts of amazing things to do. Photon, oh gods, Photon. Let's let that stay dead and buried, please. Hmm. KO Beast. I think KO Beast you could remake. Screwball comedy with furries, basically, which was just way too spastic, I think, for its own good. In the sense that it just kind of didn't, it couldn't really find a broad audience because it was just so wacky, incessantly wacky. I think you could do something really cool there. Should we make him Ultra Q? Interesting. They did the Dirty Pair reboot recently. Don't know how well that did, but they certainly did it. And I think Cutie Honey is something you can definitely reboot easily enough. What about another Dirty Pair reboot? Could you do that? Girls with guns in metal bikinis is basically Dirty Pair in a sentence. I don't know, would that be too un-PC these days? I miss live streams need a reboot. I completely agree. Let's reboot that. Reboot everything. How about a reboot of Reboot? The CGI series from the 90s. Let's reboot, if you ask me. There have been rumors, I believe there were some plans at some point to actually do that, but it never came to pass. Because, boy, that CGI from the 90s. Whew, um, there were times when their ambition outstripped the frame rate that they could churn out on their servers. Sadly, have a lot of fondness for that. But are they rebooting Reboot? Cool. Yeah, Reboot has not aged well at all. Sadly, um, every time I watched an episode of Reboot, I was like, this is like um, uh, reasonably thoughtfully written, nicely paced. Like clearly, a lot of care went into Reboot, but the CGI is just very stiff today. The music's kind of over the top. It's just doesn't really work very well. The Mind's Eye CGI. That sounds familiar. The Mind's Eye CGI. Let me look that up. Mind's Eye film series. Um, Beyond the Mind's Eye. The Gate to the Gotcha. I should look this up. I wonder if. Oh, part of it was used for the Lawnmower Man. Gotcha. Um, Back when. So, okay. Story time. I'm old. And by that I mean, I remember when the Sci Fi Channel, back when it was called the Sci Fi Channel, first launched in America. Back in the early 90s. And that was a big deal. Because at that time, geekdom was still very much fringe. You got beat up for being a geek. And so to have geekdom, to have sci-fi in general kind of get this, a whole cable channel, back when there weren't all that many cable channels, was really exciting. And Sci-Fi Channel launched, and they clearly had a big passion for sci-fi and fantasy. And they tried to show as much as they could. I mean, the roster was not great when it started, but we all realized it's because they were just starting, and you can only license so many things. Um, but I remember watching that channel obsessively, and they would show Kolchak the Night Stalker, and uh, the the original black and white Twilight Zone, and all sorts of stuff that was like legitimately interesting, but very not cutting edge sci-fi, if you will. And one of the things they do is at night, when they had kind of finished a lot of their programming, before they'd go off the air, because they didn't have, well, they wouldn't even go off the air. They would just go to uh, infomercials, but they would often have 5-10 minutes of spare time between that, and they would just show random sci-fi shorts. Sometimes fantasy, sometimes horror, but they just find short films and just throw them up on the channel. I don't think they would ever even there was no show around it. There was no host explaining it. There were no title cards. It would just transition to that, and sometimes they would show CGI sequences. And this is in the early '90s, and you'd get just some CGI animation. Remember, there was just like a hawk flying over a CGI landscape. Very low poly, all of this. But it was really cool because you would just sort of, you'd finish watching, Nightmare on Elm Street 8 or whatever that they had showed at the end of the day, and then they would transition into just these weird CGI things. I hope those clips are on YouTube somewhere. A lot of that stuff is gone. There are whole shows from the Sci-Fi Channel that I cannot find on YouTube. Like, I remember that there's a thing called Sci-Fi Buzz that they did, that was a weekly sci-fi news show, and I cannot find any clips of that on YouTube, or I couldn't last time I checked. I know it existed. I watched it pretty religiously. They had these things called faster than light news feeds, where during commercial breaks they would show like a 30-second clip of a news feed from the future, and it would talk about a clone army uprising or whatever, but it was all done like as a little news at 11 kind of a clip. It was amazing. They were doing a lot of really cool stuff, but I don't think you can find like much of any of that stuff. It was early days. I mean, there were certainly like VCRs and stuff, but apparently a lot of that stuff just was not archived or even recorded by fans. Very weird. And then a couple of years later, Sci-Fi Channel started doing their festivals of anime. They would do, in the summers, they would do a week where during prime time they'd show two films back to back, two anime movies back to back, or an OVA like Dominion Tank Police, and they would do that. You found a clip of Sci-Fi Buzz, awesome. Maybe folks are starting to upload stuff for it, but so they'd show that, and I mean it was the middle of summer, so no one was watching the Sci-Fi Channel at the time, no one was watching TV in general in the summer back then, and so they would show, well, it would end up 12 hours worth of anime, and this is like 1994. It was really hard to find anime at that point, so a lot of folks were exposed to a lot of anime you just could not find otherwise, and they would do Demon City Shinjuku and Lily Cat and Dominion Tank Police, Venus Wars, Robot Carnival, bunch of other weird things like that. Vampire Hunter D, and you get to see all of this cool weirdness. They were all dubbed. I think they were all dubbed. Yeah, because subbing just didn't, subs were not a thing on TV yet. Nobody watched subtitled stuff on TV unless you were like a French film on Bravo or something. But there was an assumption that if it was going on TV, you'd better have a dub of it. And dubs were a lot cheaper to buy anyway, usually. Yeah, I hear that, Jay. I'm definitely one of those people where I got into anime because I was a sci-fi fan, because I loved reading Asimov and Clark and Bradbury and all those people. Um, yeah, it was all dubbed. I mean, I don't remember seeing any subbed anime on TV until like the 2000s, maybe. Just because there was no market for it. If you tried, and I do know that there were, the other problem was that um, certain local stations, like in California, or certain like stations like aimed at say Japanese populace, if a city like Seattle would have a large concentration of Japanese folks, they would sometimes show anime and could only get it subbed, and they would show it and it always got abysmal ratings. So subtitled stuff was always just no one would actually sit through a subtitled thing on television. And then if you went to the rental stores to try to get stuff, the rental stores would certainly sell sub versus dubbed, but dubbed was cheaper consistently. So you'd pay $25 for a tape of dubbed and $30 for a tape subbed, usually. So you could certainly get it rental. I'm sorry, that was if you were buying it, not renting it. That's an extremely um, simplistic way of putting it, there, Akko. It's not about reading. That's not the point at all. Also remember that remember how people consume television generally. Most people do, especially back in the day. People did not consume television by sitting down and watching it. Television was on in the background. It was not something you actually paid attention to. So subbing was not really effective. Um, yeah, and that's the other thing, Seth, is that this was the '90s where we just been through the big boom of mecha anime in the '80s. So, um, um, also I should point out, you have to license audio differently. So the sub version might actually literally be more expensive to license than the dub. So that's another problem. But yeah, so there was tons of science fiction stuff in anime at the time, so it was a natural fit to show anime on like a sci-fi channel, or sell sci-fi, sell anime tapes at a sci-fi convention, stuff like that. They matched very well to those things. Japanese sci-fi is interesting because it just comes from a very different mindset than a lot of American sci-fi. So it's fun to just come at some of these concepts from a very different angle. Um, nice, Jason. Yeah, I had a local oh, can't remember the name of it, but it was a anime, not anime, but like a DVD VHS store where they stocked a good amount of anime. So I was lucky there. Um, well, again, Akko, this isn't about not being able to settle for subs. This is what's on television, right? Um, if you're gonna air something on television, you got to choose subs or dubs. You're not gonna air it twice, so you gotta, they had to choose one or the other. I mean, it's like look at Adult Swim. Look at Toonami. How much of that stuff is subbed, right? Same idea. Um, and yeah, now our options are huge. Well, and now it's all streaming, legal or otherwise. So you can just go and grab it there. But yeah, I got into anime. Luckily, at that point when there was so much sci-fi anime, that it just it piqued my sci-fi interest, and then you expand out from there. If I had both choices, what would I choose? It depends. It depends on the studio. It depends on the voice actors involved. I generally prefer dub because I'm a geek for animation, and I don't want to be glancing down at the bottom of the screen every 5 seconds if I don't have to. I want to actually concentrate on every drawing in every frame. Actually, speaking of, as an example of that, watching Anne of Green Gables, there was a scene in there where Anne is very depressed, and her door opens, and they cut away just as um, uh, someone like they cut away just as the door is opening, so you can kind of just glance at who's behind the door just before it cuts away. Um, and then you kind of see Anne's reaction. So you're supposed to kind of see who that is in that brief moment, and I timed it. That door is open for 6 frames. That's a quarter of a second that door is open for you to see who's behind that door, and it's just a sliver. In 1979, in a show for preteens, that's how much they were expecting you to pay attention. And that's moved forward into the modern day. So, there's a lot you lose in terms of little things happening on screen if you're watching the sub. That said, there are certainly studios where I love the Japanese voice actors behind those, so I prefer listening to that if I can, just because I know those voices and I like what those voices sound like. But it depends. Depends on the show, depends on the structure, depends on what kind of show it is too. Also depends on whether I like the voice actors one side or the other. I do not like Ranma's Japanese male voice actor. Just the way that voice actor sounds, I just don't like. So, and again, to be clear, that's because I'm an animation wonk. Because I like focusing on that animation, and other people don't care about that as much, and that's fine. But I'm just kind of obsessive that way. Just depends on your perspective on things and what you like and don't like and such. The other problem is, and this is just kind of a fundamental thing, is I'm also watching anime because I have this channel. I'm also watching anime for reviewing purposes, so I need to be able to see what's going on. When I'm watching anime, I'm not glancing away at things. I can't be distracted because people are gonna ask me, okay, what did you think of this moment in this scene? So my experience is not that of the average anime fan, which is just kind of very different. But yeah, one of the nice things is there are so many options. If you want the sub, you can get the sub. If you want the dub, you can find the dub somewhere, even if it's downloading it off the Pirate Bay or what have you. That is just reality at these today. But yeah, I really like the fact that we have all these choices. It has created a weird thing. Well, correct. Not all the anime I watch are dubbed because they're not all available dubbed. I'm not saying that I refuse to watch something unless it's dubbed. I'm saying if I have a choice, that is a factor. Right, yeah, the Japanese fans are not glancing at subtitles the entire time. It's a different experience, right? Different dubs are different experiences, but everything's different. But yeah, there are a lot of it's odd having so much choice has kind of fractured the fan base. We were talking about this actually on the Discord, that the fact that there's not really anime fandom as much anymore as there is kind of shonen fandom or sports anime fandom or what have you. Where people tend to get, and I see this among my students at work, where someone will say they're an anime fan, and you see what they watch, and you ask, cool, what do you see? And they say, oh, well, I started with Boruto, and then I watched Black Clover and Seven Deadly Sins, and I'm watching Dragon Ball Super, and I really like, One Piece. It's like, right? It's like, okay, so you're a fan of shonen. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just, people tend to sort of specialize more than they did back when, you know, you could only get, 20 given works of anime at the local, rental store or whatever. And they happen to be, Ranma and Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z and so forth. So your tastes tended to be more eclectic, right? Yeah, half of all anime fans are only Dragon Balls, I believe. Because there's a new 8-year-old coming into the market every minute, discovering Dragon Ball Z every minute. And so that's kind of that weird thing that we have this ability to specialize these days with anime that we couldn't before. Because it's like, okay, you want to watch, you want to be into Ranma style weird comedies. Like, great, but there's only one of those available in English. But now you can just, if you want to do Magical Girl, there's tons of Magical Girl available to you now, wherever you look. So it's pretty cool. And folks are just way more comfortable, I think, with finding various versions of shows on various sites. That is true, Seth, as well. That I think 8-year-olds, they don't really think about how long the show. Well, and 8-year-olds would rather there be lots and lots of episodes because then it's like, oh, I can just watch this forever, as opposed to us old folks who are like, oh, I can't do it. Yeah, and I don't mean to shame people who are liking shonen only. I'm just saying that for better or worse, the reality is, folks are now fans of this, this slice of the larger anime pie, not the entire pie at once. And that's just the reality of things. The only difficulty is when they self-identify as anime fans. And you're like, oh, I love anime. And you try to talk to them, and it's like, you recommend things, and they're like, well, that's there's no, when do they fight? It's like, they don't really fight much in Lane. Like, it's a very different thing. Oh, I gotcha, Okay, gotcha, yeah. We are in alignment, yes. Yeah, if you want to be into shonen, great. Just be aware that is a slice of the pie, which is cool. That is reality. But yeah, Dragon Balls. I mean, how many episodes of Dragon Ball now? Gosh, I mean, between like Z and Super and all that stuff. One of these days, I want to go back and like watch original Dragon Ball, not Z, because I started reading some of the original Dragon Ball, and like it goes off into sort of Dragon Ball Z territory pretty quickly. But if the original Dragon Ball series is more just Goku running around having adventures, I want to watch that. That was fun. Wow, started with the Battle of Planets back in '78. You are older than me, Jason. I was a little young for that stuff. That's awesome. I mean, technically, there's the standoff in Siberia, in what, episode 3 or 4 of Lane, um, and then there's her standoff with Eri at the end of the show, but not a lot of fisticuffs in Lane that I can recall. um, yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, totally. But it's a weird thing, and it is also kind of fun because I'm increasingly thinking I would like to start kind of coalescing that idea of being a fan of like those psychological, thoughtful shows, the Lanes and the Boogie Pop Phantoms and such. Is it into more because of the last one? Cool, yeah. So one of the nice things about anime is that there's so much to explore in any given decade that if you're willing to try it out, you can probably find something that you'll like, whatever your genre is. Obviously, '80s will give you a lot more mecha than other decades, but you can definitely explore odd corners all over the place. There was this one '80s anime I came across recently that I think based on some Tezuka series, where a kid shrinks down. It gets the power to like shrink down and enter people's like bloodstreams, and it's all about various diseases and trying to cure people of diseases every episode, which is really weird. Yeah, that's the other thing. Akko, you're absolutely right. Is a lot of folks just will not look at anything. Really, they'll rarely look at anything more than a few years old, which I find bizarre. But again, okay, live your best life, whatever works for you. I can't be that restricted. I gotta go out. Gotta be a pioneer. Explore those uncharted territories of weird, obscure anime from the '80s or whatever. But yeah, it's been really fun. I see if I can copy and paste this. I put together a little website. See if this shows up in the thing. Yeah, this is pretty good. It's a little website that shows all the anime airing in the basically right now 40 years ago. And this is what I've been following for the past couple of weeks to watch older anime and just kind of follow along, and it's been a lot of fun. So if you're all curious about what I've been watching recently, that's been most of it. I'm gonna also watch stuff like the Dororo remake and some of the more recent stuff, but I do not know what the Bloodstream anime is called. I have no idea. Just stumbled across it. I think it was like, gosh, I can't even remember what like service I came across it on. I don't think it was like a download. I think it was just like some random thing somebody had thrown up somewhere on Crunchyroll or something, and then disappeared. So yeah, if you want to follow along and watch old anime, that's where I am. And I know I've been talking about the Discord a lot, but I've been posting a lot of pics from these shows. And so if you want to check out some of the stuff we're discussing, some of these shows on Discord. Well, in fairness, Akko, Game Escape literally said it's rare, not never. And I'll be honest, other than the quarterly anime seasonal viewing parties, I don't watch much of the recent stuff. Maybe one or two shows, but I'm definitely more of the retro stuff myself. Ah, yes, Ultraman. If I thought doing a top 10, nah. Because I would end up doing a top 1,000. My mind just does not work that way. I just can't rank things because like, well, is this really number 10 or number 11? Like, does it really deserve to be better than this one? Is is Kadocha better than Wicked City? Way too different. Way too different to compare. I'm just not a top 10 person, which is a shame because I get way more views that way. But I will remain an obscure otaku on YouTube forever, sadly. One quick note: the seasonal anime watching party for the next season will be in 2 weeks, I do believe. On the Saturday in 2 weeks. So I do plan to live stream all of that on Rabbit, and hopefully that will work out. I've also figured out how to improve the video quality of it. It was really grainy last time, so hopefully that'll be a lot better. Another reboot of Ultraman? Wow. I know they did the Netflix CGI reboot of Ultraman. That's cool. All right. I think that will do it for us for tonight. So I will thank all of you as always for a great conversation. That's why I do this. We have a good conversation. Again, Game Escape. I don't know. I have the same problem. Is that enough things influence me personally that I just can't rank the personal significance of one show over another, especially over a career of like 20 years of watching anime. It's like, how powerful did this impact me 15 years ago? I don't even remember anymore. Oh no, this is fine, Akko. I didn't even have to boot a new one. This is not chaotic at all by my standards. Totally fine. All right, thank you all very much. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you all next week for another live stream. Again, should be a little different next week, which will be fun. And thank you all so much. Until next time, watch more anime. See you.